if I can grow muscle and I can progress actually using less load than if I go down the other route of the max, the max effort, why on earth would I not do that? Like for me personally, this is personal, my goal isn't to move as much weight as possible. Now for some people it is, and that's fine. For some people their goal is move as much load as possible because I want to do a 300-pound bench press. I want to do a 400-pound squat. Like I have never ever set personally a weight-based goal for my training. I couldn't give a tiny rat's ass. I don't care what the load is. I care whether it's changing. So I'm tracking it to see, is it improving? Is my volume improving? Does my execution stay at the same level if it does? Alphas, welcome back to the show. My name is Andy Naylor. I am founder and CEO of Naylor Body Design and host of the Optimal Alpha podcast. Let's dive in. Today we are going to cover a saying. I'm not going to say it's a myth. It's not really a myth, but it's more of a saying which, like a few sayings, sort of float around gym world and float around the health and fitness industry to a degree. And that is go hard or go home. Yep. So you've probably heard this, go hard or go home. So today we're going to delve into this saying, and we're going to try to work out if it is a smart mindset, a smart mantra, something to live by. Does it seem to make sense? Does it not seem to make sense? We're going to delve into that. Let's get to it. So 3 key topics for today. What does go hard or go home even mean? So if you've heard it, you probably know. If you've not heard it and got no idea, I'm going to try and give you some background as to what this is, where it's come from, and hopefully sort of enlighten you a little bit. Then, is it actually a wise mindset? Does it actually make any sense, or does it not? We're going to delve into that a little bit. And then, of course, is there a better solution? Is there a better way? Could we take this information that we learned today and apply it in a different way? Now, I used to train in a gym. First gym that I ever really trained at. Awesome gym. Love it. No bad words about it whatsoever. And they had this saying, along with loads of other cool stuff, graffitied on the wall. And it was awesome. But it's graffitied on the wall, go hard or go home. And there is nothing wrong with it at all. Like, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that whatsoever. And I guess I lived by that because I knew nothing better about all the other technicalities of training and everything else that goes on in the background. But I soon learned pretty quickly that just going into the gym and training as hard as I could did not seem to correlate to better results in terms of strength, physique, muscularity, etc. Like the two things just didn't, like training hard, just as hard as I possibly could and thinking about nothing else, i.e. go hard and go home, didn't seem to give me the results. In fact, it was giving me pretty much the opposite. So what does go hard or go home even? So it's like a call to arms. That was the best way. It's like a banner on a flag, isn't it? I could imagine imagine a line of like gym fanatics lining up to go into battle. On their flag would be go hard or go home. Like you can literally imagine it. I'm thinking of Game of Thrones now for some reason. It's kind of to sound out those who others might believe just aren't giving enough effort in the gym. Now, that kind of makes sense because we always, we want to give as much effort as possible. And if our mates down the gym are not putting the effort in, then we might look, oh, dude, go hard or go home. Like, fuck off, will you? Like, I can see that, right? There's a little bit of a sort of pep talk, a bit of a G up in there. But then, like with a lot of things in the fitness industry, it's just been taken to some sort of extreme, I guess, to a point where it's as if that's now potentially the only way to go about things. Or in some circles, that could be the only way to go around things. It's full force, absolutely everything, forget about everything else. And if you're not doing it that way, you're some kind of gym pussy. Right, you're just not putting the effort in. You need to be shaking, screaming, rattling around when you're doing, you're lifting, rolling around on the floor afterwards because you just put so much effort in. And in fact, we took on a client a couple of weeks ago into the accelerator program who said that their previous coach said that it was his outright goal of each session to make his clients puke. What the actual fuck? I have had clients puke. I was going to say I haven't. I have had clients puke, but what a completely pointless goal. Why on earth, as a coach, and I don't know who this coach is, so I'm not bad-mouthing an individual person. I haven't got a clue who they are. But what a shocking mindset. I have to, if the person actually meant it, I want my clients to come into a session with me, and if they haven't puked by the end of it, I've done a shit job. Ridiculous. That's someone's fucking breakfast they've got to eat again. Not literally off the floor. Let's not have that image in our minds. But they've got to go and eat that food again. They've disrupted their digestion. Puking is never a good thing. Why is that a badge to wear? Oh, if you don't puke after leg day, have you really tried? I have never once puked from training. Ever. Why? Because I'm not a fucking idiot. Probably. So they're the sort of first things that come to mind when I think of go hard or go home. These are the sort of things, right? So is this a wise mindset? Well, look, we all want to get the most out of our time in the gym, right? We want to get the most results for the time, the energy, and the money that we're investing into our health and physique. So it's literally why we're all going to the gym. It's literally what we all want. So ask yourself this question. How long, if you're not seeing results, right? If you're not seeing, or the results that you feel that you deserve, how long are you going to continue going to the gym, doing the same things over and over and not getting paid? How long would you go to your job that you work in, that you're getting paid for? If they suddenly stopped paying you, how long would you continue to go before you decided this isn't working for me? So why the fuck do people just keep going to the gym, doing the same shit over and over again, i.e. just training hard and not getting the results that they potentially could? Or, that's just the simple way I look at it. Once you look at something from a different point of view, it's like, oh yeah, okay, well, I've been doing the same thing, or training in the same way with the same mindset for the last X amount of months, years, and I just don't seem to be getting results. Well, continue doing that. Continue doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result is literally the definition of insanity, according to Mr. Einstein, I believe. No change equals no change. So maybe it's not the effort that's the problem, right? We need the effort in the gym. Maybe it's the amount of effort. Maybe it's the mindset. Maybe it's the perspective. Maybe it's something else. So what could we do instead? How could we approach this? How could we keep the mindset of go hard or go home, or max effort, or whatever we want to call it, the go hard or go home mindset, which there are certainly positives that we can pull out from. How can we keep that, use it, but now elevate it to something more useful? So the way in which I look at this is, to try and give you some perspective, is when we look at training, there are, on the two edges of the extremes, on one side we have max effort, which is your go hard or go home territory. Just all out max effort. Fuck form, fuck injuries, fuck everything else, just max effort, right? That's on one end of the extreme. And if you go to a gym on a regular basis, you can picture those people, right? You can probably picture them, right? But on the other hand of the extreme, we've now got perfect execution. Okay? Perfect. Max effort one side, ridiculously perfect execution on the other. Now, neither end of this scale produce the best results. Now, interestingly, this is probably going to upset a whole bunch of people. Take men and women. I'm generalizing massively. Disclaimer, I am generalizing massively, but this is just my observation. For the most part, guys live further down the max effort route. And for the most part, women tend to lean further down the perfect execution route. There's nothing wrong with that. But guess what? If you could morph those two things together, the most amount of effort with the best execution possible, straight down the middle, that's where you want to hang out. So it's like women could do with being a little bit more like men, and men could do with being a little bit more like women in terms of what they're focusing on. Now, there's nothing wrong with, I'm not stating there's anything wrong with the way that people train in this particular scenario. But now sit back and tell me that if you don't notice that when you go to the gym, next time you go to the gym, look for it. Now, there will be outliers in both of those. Absolutely there will. There'll be guys who, do not put the effort in, but their perfection looks absolutely perfect. Like their perfection is absolutely perfect. But they're just not, they're just training at that point, then they are training like a wet flannel. And then you've got women who will also train super, super hard, and their form will be shit. So yes, there will be outliers. But for the most part, men seem to go down the max effort route. Women seem to go down the perfect execution. And simply put, for men and for women, straight down the middle is where you want to hang out. It is a balance. It is a compromise of both. When I train, I could lift more weight than I use on basically everything. Now listen to what I've just said, because this wasn't always the way. Go back to when I first started training. My goal was to lift as much as possible, because that was max effort. That was go hard or go home. That's where I thought the results were. Lift as much weight as you possibly can. And as you go up and up in weight, form erodes and erodes and erodes and erodes to the point where you're not even really doing the exercise anymore. You're just moving stuff about. And then you start to kind of go, well, okay, like this isn't working. I'm starting to get injured. I'm just not making any progress. There's got to be a better way. So then naturally, if you're truly interested in this sort of stuff, you start to kind of educate yourself, read a few books, go on a few courses, do a few seminars, and it sort of open yourself up to the idea that there are other ways of thinking. Then you start to look at execution, commonly known as form. How to do a movement for the result that you want. So while on this subject, here's another little thought that often goes through my head. If your goal is physique optimization, let's just say your goal is building muscle, not to a silly extreme, but just a decent amount of muscle, then therefore, excuse me, when you go into a gym, your goal is not to lift weights and use machines. Your goal is not to lift weights and use machines. Now, granted, that's exactly what you're going to do when you go into a gym. It's not the goal. That's just the vehicle that you're going to put yourself in to achieve the goal. So therefore, what's the goal? Challenge muscles. Challenge muscles. The goal is to go into a gym and put like your skeletal muscle, areas of it, under a challenge that they have not yet seen. So therefore, they need to adapt to that challenge. Like, you already know that this is the case, but we get caught up with must train harder, must train harder, must train harder, to the point where we can lose quite often the thought process that what are we actually doing here? Why have I come into the gym? Is it just to see if I can max out, the stack on this particular seated press or this particular row? Like, the actual weight, not that the weight becomes irrelevant, but the intention that you place through your muscles when you move a weight is everything. The intention that goes through the muscle. So when you're go hard or go homing, right? Generally speaking, I can tell you that load is then being placed and spread across the area that you're trying to hit. So let's take a chest press, whatever, right? The goal of a chest press is to work your pecs, basically it. Now, of course, your pecs will be contracting and working pretty much no matter what, but where the load sits in you, where it is optimally placed, will change depend on the load and on the exercise selection, which is something we're not delving into right here. But as the load goes up, your body will do its damn job, which is to spread that load across as many things as it possibly can. So elbow joint, wrist, shoulder joint, connective tissue. It will have you arch your back to try and put you in the most optimal position to move the load. Well, all of those things are not the most optimal place to place the load when it comes to actually training your chest. So quite often people will do far better with, yes, coming down in load a little bit, but then the execution going up through the roof. You should be able to take a load that is, say, 20% less, 30% less than you might use on a regular, and just through the quality of the execution and how you place the load in your musculature, you can make each rep so much harder. And if you're, if you're sort of in your 40s, 50s, I'm 43, the last thing I need is an injury. Honestly, the last thing I need. So if I can grow muscle and I can progress, actually using less load than if I go down the other route of the max, the max effort, why on earth would I not do that? Like, for me personally, my goal isn't to move as much weight as possible. Now, for some people it is, and that's fine. For some people, their goal is move as much load as possible because I want to do a 300-pound bench press. I want to do a 400-pound squat. Like, I have never, ever set, personally, a weight-based goal for my training. I couldn't give a tiny rat's ass. I don't care what the load is. I care whether it's changing. So I'm tracking it to see, is it improving? Is my volume improving? Does my execution stay at the same level if it does? What is my fatigue like? How am I rest? Like, I look at all the other areas, but ultimately, I must get to a 6-plate leg press. I couldn't give a shit. Makes absolutely no difference to me. It did at one point. It absolutely did at one point, but right now, chasing down those sort of I want to lift a certain amount of weight on a certain movement just doesn't interest me. Now, if it does interest you, that's absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It is good to be trying to move towards a goal. But then when you take a step back and go, well, what I'm actually here for? So for me, it's physique development, maintaining a healthy, above average physique. It's all I need. So it allows me to go off and do all the other things that I want. Yeah, that might be a photo shoot one day, right? That's fine. But I don't then need to put my body in a position where it is at such risk of shoulder issues, knee issues, back issues, that then it puts me, out of action for other areas of my life. This is just a thought process and a perspective that I go through, and it's shifted over time. When I trained in my 20s, I can remember doing a 4.5 plate Smith machine squat. Now, that was not my legs that was lifting that weight. I can even think back to how much my fucking back hurt while I was doing it. But I was like, oh my God, I'm just moving more weight. I'm moving more weight. This seems to be right. No. At the moment, I leg press, I think it's 110, maybe 120 kilograms a side on a leg press. Now, that's not comparable to any other leg press. I've done nearly half that again. But I can use that weight in such an intention, with such a range, that I get everything out of it that I need. So my quads are done by the end of it, but it's just my quads that are done. My knees are fine, my hips are fine, my back is fine. My CNS hasn't been fried to shreds. So to begin to round up today's episode, just have this thought process in your mind. Go hard or go home, we're also now going to call just max effort. Or we've got on the other end of the extreme, perfect execution. Bring the two together in the middle. First of all, work out for you what is perfect execution. There's quite a number of technicalities in that. And again, I'm probably going to delve into that on another episode. But what is perfect execution for you for a given movement, for the goal? Once you've worked out what that is, then how much load can you currently use and maintain that level of execution quality? Aha! Well, then that's your middle point. You've found it. Now your goal is to slowly increase the load while constantly maintaining that perfect execution, and that will take time. And welcome to the game. So that's going to round up today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you found this useful, insightful, I appreciate you. Thank you very much. How about leaving us a 5-star review? Maybe subscribe to the podcast, maybe download the episode. It helps with the ratings, and ratings are life. So for now, I'm going to leave you with this. I hope you're going to have a great day. But for now, over and out.